So, Dead Space.
I'm literally trapped and can't use a gun right now, so this is fun.
What? Oh, no, no, no. Are you okay? No.
Yeah, it's an 8.75.
Perfect. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks for coming back for our next episode. We're going to be discussing Dead Space, the 2023 remake today, getting into all things in depth of the game. We're going to start off with a little bit of non-spoiler stuff for those of you that don't want everything ruined, and then for those of you that do, we're going to get into every single little tiny detail of the game. So, John, do you want to kind of give people the basics? What's the plot summary for this?
Yeah, so basically Dead Space, it's a remake of the 2008 game of the same name, Dead Space, but it's a survival horror game set in the 26th century on a mining spaceship that was overrun by deadly monsters. So the players control the control engineer Isaac Clarke, who's a member of the USS Enterprise, perhaps, and he was sent. We did a fact check. It was indeed the USS Enterprise.
There's a lot of ships.
And he was sent to investigate a large space station, the USS Ishimura, and that ship was gone radio silent, fallen off the grid. And it starts as an initial checkup, but it turns into a fight for their lives as he and his crewmates navigate the spaceship to restore power while forced to battle alien life forms along the way with something much, much worse.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so just a little bit of background info for those of you guys that like this stuff. This game, as I mentioned, came out this year. It was January 2023 was the remake. This game originally came out back in 2008, so we got a 15-year revamp coming. It was made by Motive Studio and Electronic Arts as the developers. IGN actually gave it a 9 out of a 10, quote, amazing for the rating, and it's a genre survival horror game. So for those of you that don't necessarily know kind of what falls into that category. Other popular ones, like Resident Evil is obviously the biggest. The Alan Wake series, Evil Within is one of my personal favorites. Silent Hill, obviously a classic. The Outlast games, and then BioShock is actually considered a survival horror as well. So it's a big thing, like how immersed the game can make you as far as like, lighting is a big thing, music, and like fearing for your life as you go. You don't want to just feel like you're a beast right off the bat. So that's big for me. I believe we both played this one on normal. I think that, at least in my experience, there were some moments early on where I was like, oh man, do I need to switch to easy because either I'm just bad or this is really, really tough. But I would say for all of you out there that go through that too in this game in particular, it's worth holding off and dealing with it because the game does a really nice job of making you feel like you're kind of isolated and not prepared for the situation at the start, and then as you develop and get upgrades and stuff, you get more prepared. So I think that that's a nice way to kind of feel like it changed as the game went on. As we mentioned, this one's obviously a remake, so just a few like cool remake notes that we both found as we played the game and researched ahead of time and all that we just kind of wanted to talk about. The craziest one to me, and I think that most people who are familiar with this game would agree on, in the original in 2008, the main character Isaac didn't talk.
Any luck moving that tram car?
The autoloader's busted, but stasis should do the trick. Just gotta time it.
Your stasis module should be able to help you with that arm mechanism.
I think it was. I can't imagine the game being played without Isaac talking. I don't I don't know how that game would go. So I thought that was really crazy. If he has some really good lines in this whole game and really good development, and if you just take it all away and just add in some grunts, I feel like it was a good addition because he's not Doom guy. He's Isaac Clarke.
Don't get me wrong, it wasn't that, Isaac was this great monologuing linguist or anything and like his dialogue made the game, but man, if you take the dialogue of the main character out of pretty much any game, it's just going to feel weird. So I can't imagine another game doing that. I'm really glad that this was one of the changes they made versus sticking to the original version. So it was a nice touch, especially because he had some sarcasm and points and he wasn't just like the everyman hero. Like he was freaked out in different spots, or he was kind of just over it and checked out at some point. So it added to the entertainment.
You clearly haven't played Doom.
No, Yeah, from what you've told me, I'm like, it's okay.
Added to the list.
Oh yeah.
So another thing they added was the 0G sections. That was completely brand new. Before in the game, it was, they just had a button that you press and it goes you from point A to point B. But in this game, you actually have to do the 0G sections, fly around. It wasn't clunky at all.
It was nice because it made it feel difficult. Like, I loved the normal flying around and getting to different previously inaccessible levels or out in space. But then fighting enemies, it was just a pain because you never find out where they were coming from. Like, I'd be getting hit or I'd hear them, like, screaming or making noises, and I'm still like, I don't know what direction you're coming from. But that made it feel realistic. Like, you're not going to be as comfortable flying around in the air as you are on the ground. So it was another nice example of like the realistic immersion to it. The next big part, and this was like my personal favorite, they were very, very proud of the developers in this game, created this thing called the Intensity Director, which, I mean, other games have done similar things to it, but it's kind of a cutting edge thing that we're hoping to see more games do. So basically they'd added this as a way to control the stress level for the player. So just basically making it where different playthroughs for different people are not going to be the same. It's basically just the variety of different effects in it, whether it's lights, sound, all different stuff that can happen, enemies spawning, different things like that. So it's basically just a way to guarantee that like something is always happening and it's not just like back-to-back high-intensity stressful moments or followed by dead time for no reason. Like, it's always just an enemy could come out here and it makes sense to.
I feel like that's a sign that an enemy is going to show up in a second. Oh, okay!
Or they could not, and then they might just walk up from behind you around a corner. Like, you don't know what to expect. So,
and I think
thought that was really cool.
I think one thing that was really cool about it is that it also is just environmental too, and there's multiple times where the ceiling vent and was just like going haywire and spinning extremely fast and then breaking out, or like you're walking down a hall and the hallway lights just start flickering, and you're every other game you're like, oh, this means there's a creature coming, I have to get ready for a fight. But it meant nothing. It was just to add to the ambiance, which I thought was really, really well done.
And then the alternative where like I'd be doing something totally normal, there's no dark music, there's no big jump scare build up, and all of a sudden in the corner of my camera, like some enemy is just walking up right behind me, and I'm like, Jesus, like give me a warning, something. So it was done in a nice way where it kept you on your toes. I think I read somewhere there were over 1,200 unique events in the entire system. So it's, it's a nice way to not feel like you're playing the exact same game again if you go New Game Plus or revisit this, months later. We'll move into our next section here, which we like to talk about with every single game, the skill tree and progression system. I'll kind of just let you start it off here. What do you think of the whole upgrade system in general in this game?
So I had mixed reviews about it. I think the overall layout is really good. Basically how it works is that you have your suit upgrades, then you have your weapon upgrades, and you can collect nodes throughout the game from, monster drops or from just on the map. There's just nodes that are sitting around that you can pick up, and then you use those nodes to basically put upgrades. And you can also buy nodes from the store for 10,000 credits. So that's how you get nodes. And then when you want to upgrade stuff, you just basically take one node and put it towards that upgrade. So that's how the upgrade system works. I feel like it was a good layout because then in your guns, you can choose, I want to have more ammo capacity, I want to have these special upgrades, or your suit, you can upgrade to have more oxygen, higher health, all of this stuff. And it's really cool, but I didn't like how it turned out. It's basically built for New Game Plus, essentially, is why I didn't like it. You're not going to be able to upgrade everything, which makes sense, that's fine. But then the part that I didn't like the most is that after you beat a certain chapter, you can upgrade your suit. And then when you go and pay the 15,000 credits, 20,000, 40,000 credits, whatever it is, to upgrade your suit, you have your suit upgraded. And that was great. But then later on, you find weapon upgrades from the map, and then you have to take the weapon upgrade from here that you found, input it into the store, then you can buy it on the store, and then after you buy it on the store, then you have to upgrade it into the node system. And it was so many steps, and I felt like, I was going for a completionist, right? So throughout this entire game, I was spending all my money on the upgrades. I was spending my money on the weapon upgrades, and then I was spending it on the suit upgrades. But then I was never able to purchase anything in the shop as a result. And then later on in the game, it was, I think chapter 9 or 10, that's when I finally started buying just health packs or ammo in the game. So that's my, I think the upgrade system was good, but mainly just built for New Game Plus, which I didn't like.
Yeah, agreed. For those of us that aren't going to be the New Game Plus completionist people, it's kind of a bummer. Like, I think what would have made the most sense, like you said, with too many steps, is if they just removed the second buying. Like, it's fine if you want to go find it out in the wild of the game, and then you have to bring it to the workbench, because that makes sense where it's realistic of you have to go and work on it somewhere. You don't just automatically get it because you picked up a piece of paper. But why do I have to find it and then buy it in the shop if I already have it? That was just kind of goofy. So
Capitalism.
I really liked the actual display of it itself. Like, I liked how if you would go to the workbench, it popped up an actual screen to show you the progression, so it wasn't just like a pause menu where you were just going, okay, from level 1 to level 2. Like, it showed the entire layout. It let you, like, work with the gun, putting, like, different upgrades into what you wanted to do. So maybe this gun you wanted to be just really powerful, but this other one you wanted to have more of a like a reload speed or capacity or something. Like, I liked that there was a variety to it versus just, oh, you go from level 1 to level 2 and then this is everything that upgrades with it. So those parts were done well.
Talking about graphics, this game looked amazing. They really nailed the atmosphere of just being on a ship in space that's kind of a dead freight. The lighting and shadows, everything was just made the game feel great.
Yeah, if you were picking one thing for each, like for every game you've ever played to be like, this is what they nailed, Dead Space was the shadows and the lighting. Like that, just the graphics overall was so well done that it added to every single scene what you were in, no matter if it was dangerous or not.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then you get like the other aspect of random people on the ground. They're dying, they're laughing, they're offing themselves. It's creepy. The game was really eerie.
Yeah, there was a lot of different little mechanics added in throughout. Just like there wasn't one big thing you could point to. It was just the entire environment and overall feeling of the game as you played. There were just so many nice little tiny touches done. They did a good job. The attention to detail was great. As far as the gameplay, I'll kind of leave this one to you because I know this is your big one, like the thing that matters usually the most to you in games. So how did this one handle for you overall? Like, were the weapons clunky? How was the movement? All of that stuff.
So overall, with first starting off, I think the biggest gameplay factor was that instead of shooting zombies in the head, you have to shoot zombies' limbs off. Mm-hmm. So you have to shoot their legs and their arms off in order to kill them, which is a different take on a zombie game, and I thought it was really cool because very first one you fight, I start shooting the head and I'm like, oh, this guy's not dying. And so then you start realizing that you have to shoot their limbs off, and that's kind of what gives them their life. I don't know why, but we just accept that.
Yeah.
So
no question.
Yeah. So then it became a thing of, okay, now you have to tailor your weapons in order to do that. And I think, a lot of the guns are really, really cool. And I think all the guns, they did a great job with having a unique feel to it, because each gun has a primary fire and a secondary fire.
Oh, they do? News to me.
Jack here went the entire game without using a secondary fire.
Yeah. Let me be clear. I knew they were there. I just, for whatever reason, was like, it was not in my head whenever I was in the middle of a fight to be like, oh, let me switch to this other side and see what they can do. I'm like, primary fire works for me, so yeah.
So I think that was a cool thing. All of the guns have a really unique secondary fire. Some of them are better than the other, and some where I'm like, I don't even know in which case I would ever use this. But then there was one gameplay mechanic that I just didn't like, and it was the melee button. It was useless. It
just didn't do anything. It didn't really, like, I felt like I was getting hit more than I was actually doing damage despite stepping on their skull. Like, it just didn't hurt as much as it should have hurt them.
Mm-hmm. And it was a cool ability to use. It felt like there was some weight to it, which was fun. But then once you're stomping dead enemies to get more loot, which was cool. But then when you're using it in combat, like you said, you're going to get hurt more than you're gaining. And there's a lot of times where there's monsters crawling towards you, and you're like, this is the perfect scenario for me to use a stomp, and you just get destroyed.
Yeah, it was much more just like if you were playing through this and about to start for the first time, I would never ever use it when you're fighting. But the way I played it was any body I saw ever, even if I just killed it 10 seconds ago, I was like, it could come back to life. I don't know. So I stomped everything. There were points, I'm not proud of it, where, you know, I'd get into a room and it was like a crew of 10, you know, still humans that had died. And I'm like, yeah, I don't trust you. I'm going to stomp everything.
My gun. Oh. Anyway, I started blasting. Bah! Bah!
You have two kind of suit abilities. One is the stasis that just slows down time. You know, mainly you use it for if there's a malfunctioning door that's going too fast, you stasis it, and it makes it go a little slower so you can go through it. Or you can use it on enemies that, you know, slows them down so you can kill them easier. Especially when they're moving really fast and you have to shoot the limbs, you have to be precise, so that's a great ability to use. Didn't use it often.
Not for like lack of needing it. It's great if you do, but for whatever reason, it's not, again, not something you think of when you're in the middle of combat.
There's a creature called the Brute that, you know, you have their weak spot on their back, so you have to shoot them in the back essentially, which is hard to do. And first couple that I fought were super difficult. I was like, this is a really tough guy. Then I started using the stasis ability on them and I was like, wow, this is extremely easy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize there was anything on the back at first. I just thought, well, they're big, like they must just take a ton of damage, so you just keep firing into their face or their front area, and yeah, makes it way easier when you can just slow down the toughest guys in the game.
Other than that, it was the gravity pull that you have as a ability. That one you can just basically just move stuff with the force, and you can also, you know, if you shoot at someone's limbs off, you can pull the limbs off and throw it back at them. So really cool ability. A whole bunch of implications with it. Even if enemies are throwing bombs at you, you can just take the bomb and throw it back at them. So really cool.
Uno reverse card them. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all of that. I love too, speaking of the stasis, that there was the constant like stasis bar on your back along with the health bar. Like it just showed the full amount you had to still pull from. So it was really, really helpful versus just having it kind of be like the cliche health bar and HUD in the corner. That was kind of like immersion breaking. Again, we keep going back to this, but having it on your suit seemed realistic for like a space situation and being able to keep track of it. And then the heart to health rate. Having that listed on there added a little bit to the like panic and nervousness when it got down low as you were going into a fight, so you could see how much health you had left. You could feel the heart rate as you were getting into stressful situations, and Isaac was panicking. So I think all of that was like a really, really nice touch as well.
It's actually interesting now that I'm thinking about it. It's really helpful for the player to see the health bar and the stasis bar, everything on Isaac's back. But now that I'm thinking about it, really not convenient for Isaac.
Yeah, no idea how much I've got. Yeah, I never thought of that. It'd be nice if he ever like checked it, you know, maybe like when he used a health pack, if it was on his forearm or something, like if he also checked something in there, because yeah, how would you ever know?
Yeah, anyone know what health I'm at right now? Hey, can you check that when you're back there?
That's kind of funny. Just talking to the camera, fourth wall. I never thought of that during the game. That makes a lot of sense. We'd love to talk about this part, but haptic feedback, they did a little bit of that in this game, so what'd you think?
I love it. I really love when the PS5 games use DualSense controller, but the trigger resistance is cool with the guns. You know, you get the feeling of the weapon that you're using, which is really cool. Yeah. Also, when you're using like the stomp ability, you can feel it in the beginning of the game when you're flying from your ship to the Ishimura, and then the controller's going crazy. I had to pause the game.
Yeah, right off the bat, it was a good way to kick things off. So it's nice, and again, just kind of adds to the feeling that you're actually in the game, living this yourself. Music and sound side of things. Any thoughts or notes to add on that?
So as far as the music goes with the game, you know, there's no traditional score of the game, which makes sense because the game it's supposed to be eerie and kind of quiet. Just some random noises here and there, and yeah, it just keeps you on edge. It's like the gameplay mechanic that we discussed earlier about how there's random events that are happening, and it's really good. And they nailed the, you know, atmosphere, especially with the sound department in this game.
The little noises and touches really added to that, which I appreciated. On the other side of things, the writing and the dialogue, for it not being a game that's like focused on like the story as the main component, it was still really, really well done, which is nice. It wasn't over the top where there was a ton of speaking, because obviously Isaac's alone most of the time. The audio logs were a good way to add in some lore and backstory without it being like in your face. We're going to take you through flashbacks and show you exactly what happened. So yeah, well, I think that's all of our categories. So now we get into our final review. Do you have any closing thoughts before we give our score out of 10?
Great remake.
Well said. Back to you. Yeah, no, it was the definition of what a remake should be. It brings in people that haven't even played the original, like us, and it, from looking back on other game clips of the original and stuff, it was like clear what they improved on and what they actually changed versus, you know, sometimes like remasters where they don't really feel like it's much different than just a little bit of a touch up. So I gave this a 9 out of 10. I thought it was great. I enjoyed it throughout, and there weren't any points where I was annoyed or disappointed by it.
I would give it a 8.5 out of 10. It's a good remake that would make me go back to play Dead Space 2 or 3. So I think that's great.
So, getting through all of that, we're going to have a section every time we go through games where we're basically going to rate it, kind of what our viewpoint of it is. So we're going to either have pass, where we basically are just saying, please don't play it, we had to, and we're saving you. Sale, where it's, you know, it was good, but I definitely wouldn't pay full price for it. Full price, where it's, you know, like definitely worth getting it at some point and playing in the near future. Or must play, which is basically just drop everything you're doing and go and play this game right now. So, based on that, full price. So not quite the must play.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a full price game. It's not one that I would say, yeah, drop everything and play right now. But it's definitely, you know, as far as remakes goes, this is kind of a gold standard for me of this is how you should make remakes.
I definitely think it's like close to must play for me, where like I wouldn't drop the game that you're playing right now, but if I was recommending it to a friend, I would say, put this on your list for like the next one you buy. Cool. Well, that's our show. We're going to be bringing you another episode in the near future, probably in another week or two, of the current game that we just finished up, Need for Speed Unbound, the most recent Need for Speed game. So stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, please check this video out. Let us know any thoughts you have about Dead Space, or if you have comments that you've played it, questions about stuff we didn't cover, or if there's any games that you want to see us cover in the future, we will add them to our top of our list to check out. So, John, do you have any closing thoughts?
Hopefully Need for Speed is good.
Don't think we can keep this chase up, dispatch.
Wow! Help!
There's a perp in the air.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Oh, God.
Well, see you later.
Bye.